Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start today with, well, actually a little experiment. I want you, the listener, to pull out your phone right now, if you can. Unlock it, open WhatsApp or iMessage, and just send a text to a friend.
Right, assuming you aren't driving, obviously.
Yeah, please don't do this while driving, but if you're sitting at a desk, send a message. It doesn't matter where they are. They could be in the next room, or they could be in Manila, halfway across the world.
Or honestly on the space station, practically, given the latency we're used to today.
Exactly. You hit send, whoosh, it's just gone. How long did that actually take? Maybe, what, 200 milliseconds?
Barely enough time to blink.
And what did it cost you? Effectively zero. I mean, it's a data packet moving at the speed of light across the internet's backbone. It is completely frictionless.
Right, and it's trivial. It's the baseline expectation for communication in the 21st century. We don't even think about it.
Now, keep that phone in your hand. Imagine you want to send that exact same friend, the one in Manila, just $50, just $50. Suddenly, we leave the world of fiber optics and light speed, and we enter, well, what feels like a total Dickensian nightmare.
It really is a time warp. You go from the speed of light to the speed of a donkey cart in the mud.
That $50 might take 5 days to arrive. 5 business days, mind you. Weekends don't count because, apparently, money sleeps. Yeah. And it might cost you $50 just in fees to send it.
Right. The fee equals the principal.
And along the way, it has to hop through maybe 4 different banks, getting stamped and approved like a physical passport in the 19th century.
It creates this staggering disconnect. We have information moving at the speed of the internet, but value actual money is still moving at the speed of the pre-internet era. It's totally stuck in the pipes.
And that disconnect is exactly what we are focusing on in today's Practical Jobs to be Done deep dive. We are looking at a research dossier that I can only describe as a complete manifesto for the future of money. It's by Mike Boysen, and it's titled Tradfi on Stablecoin Rails.
But we should clarify immediately, because I know some listeners hear the word stablecoin and their eyes just glaze over, or they instantly think scam. This isn't a crypto bro white paper.
No, not at all.
This isn't about buying meme coins or speculating on the price of Bitcoin. This is a highly structural analysis of the plumbing of the global economy. Specifically, Boysen is looking at the $33 trillion B2B payments market.
33 trillion.
Exactly. And he's looking at the physics of how money currently moves versus how it fundamentally should move.
We're going to talk about something Boysen calls the physics floor versus the commercial ceiling. We're going to look at why SWIFT, the system your very own bank uses right now, is technically obsolete, why artificial intelligence isn't going to save the banks, and this concept of the Mullet strategy, which honestly might be the best business term I've heard in a decade.
It's definitely the most visual. Fintech in the front, crypto in the back.
We will get into all those mechanics, but I want to start with the core problem. Because I think most people, unless you happen to be a corporate treasurer listening to this, don't realize how truly bad the current system actually is. You're the pragmatist here. Why is sending money so hard? Why can't I just email money?
Well, the skeptic in me and the analyst has to jump in here and say that money is not just data. That's the fundamental misunderstanding tech people have.
Go on.
When you send a WhatsApp message, if a packet gets dropped or lost, the protocol just silently resends it. No harm, no foul. If you send $1 million and it gets lost, that's a massive lawsuit. That's a federal regulatory investigation.
A bankruptcy for somebody.
Exactly. Money isn't just a number in a database. It is a liability. It is a legal obligation. It is heavy regulation wrapped in risk, wrapped in math.
So the friction we feel, the 5 days, the $50 fees, that's actually a feature, not a bug.
In the current architecture, absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. It is designed to be slow because, historically, speed was equated with risk. The dossier outlines this brilliantly using a concept called the ID10T index.
I laughed out loud when I read that in the manifesto. The ID10T index. Usually that's an old IT joke like user error, problem lies between keyboard and chair.
Right, spell it out. ID10T.
Idiot.
But Boysen uses it very differently here.
He does. It's a measure of systemic fragility. It asks a brutal, purely operational question. If the demand for your service scaled 10 times overnight, so a 10x spike in transaction volume, but your infrastructure remained exactly the same, what happens?
Does it bend or does it completely break? Exactly. Does the system cope or does it collapse? The argument here is that our current global banking system has a massive ID10T score. It is incredibly fragile to scale. If you try to push 10 times the payments through the current SWIFT system, You don't get 10 times the efficiency
You get total gridlock.
because it relies on manual reconciliation, phone calls, emails, and a chain of human trust that simply breaks down the moment you add too much volume.
So we are setting the stage here. We have a world where demand for rapid microtransactions is about to explode, but the pipes are totally clogged with human manual review. Our mission today is to deeply explore the structural inversion of this system. But to do that, we have to look at the incumbent, the villain of our story, if you will, the SWIFT correspondent cabal.
Cabal is a strong word, but functionally, it's accurate regarding how tightly gated the network is. To understand why your wire transfer costs $50 and takes a week, you have to understand that SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, isn't actually moving your money.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause right there. SWIFT doesn't move money.
No. SWIFT is purely a messaging system. It is essentially a glorified 1970s telex service.
A text message service for bank.
Literally. It sends a highly secure text message from Bank A to Bank B saying, please debit this account and credit that account. It completely separates the information, the message, from the actual funds, the value.
So it's just the instruction. It's the menu, not the meal.
That's a great way to put it. And here is where it gets incredibly messy. Because there is no single global ledger, Bank A in New York can't just magically give money to Bank C in Thailand. They don't trust each other. They don't have a direct relationship.
We're complete strangers.
Right. So they need a chaperone.
Yeah.
They need Bank B in London, who happens to know both of them, to sit in the middle and vouch for the transfer. This is what we call the correspondent bank.
The middleman.
And very often it's not just one middleman, it's a daisy chain. Bank A talks to Bank B, who talks to Bank C, who finally talks to the destination bank.
Let's walk through a real-world example to make this super concrete for you listening. Let's say I am a mid-size furniture importer in Ohio. I am buying $100,000 worth of timber from a supplier down in Brazil. I go to my local regional bank in Ohio and say, send $100K to Brazil. What actually happens?
Okay, let's trace the plumbing. Your local Ohio bank doesn't hold Brazilian reals.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't have a direct account with a local Brazilian bank.
Yeah.
So they send a SWIFT message to their correspondent. Maybe that's JP Morgan in New York. JP Morgan takes the dollars.
Okay, step one.
Then JP Morgan looks for a partner who deals directly in Brazil. Maybe they have to send it to a European bank first because of how their daily liquidity is set up. Then that European bank sends it to a major Brazilian bank in São Paulo.
Right.
And then finally, that major Brazilian bank forwards it to the local bank where your timber supplier actually has their account.
That's 4 separate hops.
4 hops. And at every single hop, 2 critical things happen. 1, a fee is taken. They call it a lifting fee. But 2, and this is a really crucial part, a human being or a piece of legacy software has to review the transaction for compliance.
For money laundering and terrorism finance.
AML and KYC. Anti-money laundering and know your customer. They are checking names against global sanctions lists. And this is exactly where the fragility of the ID10T index comes in. If the furniture store in Brazil happens to be located on the street called Cuba Avenue,
Oh, no.
the legacy software flags it. The word Cuba is a sanctioned entity, so the entire transaction just freezes in the system.
Just dead in the water.
And it sits there until a human compliance officer at JP Morgan manually opens the digital file, looks at it, realizes it's just a street name in Brazil and not the sanctioned country, and clicks release. That manual review takes time.
This is what the dossier calls the impossible trinity of traditional cross-border payments. High cost, low speed, and opacity. You never actually know where your money is. It's in the void until it isn't.
You are essentially sending money into a black box and hoping it comes out the other side intact.
But let's talk about the cost, because I think people fixate on that wire fee. They think, oh, it's $50 to send a wire. That's annoying. But for a business moving $100,000, $50 is a rounding error. Boysen argues that the $50 fee is merely the commercial ceiling. The real hidden cost is something he calls the numerator.
This is arguably the most important financial concept we will discuss today. The numerator.
Break it down for us. What exactly makes up the numerator?
It is the hidden tax of the foreign exchange markup. This is where the correspondent banks make their real money. It's totally insidious because it's basically invisible to the sender. It's not a line item on your invoice.
Right. They don't send you a receipt saying, thanks, we took $3,000 from you today.
Exactly. They just give you a terrible exchange rate. Let's go back to your furniture guy in Ohio. He's sending that $100,000. He checks Google Finance on his phone, and the real-time market rate is 5 Brazilian reals to 1 US dollar.
Okay, so my 100K should get my supplier 500,000 real.
In a fair, frictionless world, yes. That's called the mid-market rate. But your regional bank and their correspondents aren't giving you the Google rate. They act like one of those retail currency kiosks at the airport. They give you the retail rate, so maybe they only give you 4.85.
That honestly doesn't sound like a huge difference. 4.85 versus 5.0, it's 15 cents.
It sounds small until you do the multiplication. $100,000 times that 0.15 difference. You just lost $3,000 of pure purchasing power. You paid $3,000 for the privilege of a bank typing numbers into a slow web form.
$3,000? That's a used car. That's a whole extra pallet of timber. That could be a holiday bonus for an employee. Just poof, gone into the ether.
Vanished straight into the P&L of the banking sector.
Yeah.
And here's the real kicker. It hits the small and mid-sized guys so much harder. Apple or Amazon might negotiate that spread down to 0.1% because of their volume. But the furniture guy, he's paying full retail. On a $33 trillion B2B market, we are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars effectively extracted via spread.
And that's just the hard capital cost. We haven't even talked about the labor cost involved in this mess.
The human toll, yes.
Yeah.
The dossier breaks this down into labor tiers, which I found incredibly insightful for understanding the friction. First, you have the L1, the accounts payable clerk. They make maybe $25 an hour. Their entire job is manual data entry.
Just typing in the long IBAN numbers and SWIFT codes.
Right. But because the system is so inherently slow and opaque, you also need an L3, a Treasury manager making maybe $150 an hour, just to hedge the currency risk.
Wait, explain that to the listener. Why does a company need to hedge just to send a payment?
Because the money takes 5 days to arrive. In those 5 days, the value of the Brazilian real might drop by 2%. If you are running a tight margin import business, that 2% swing during transit could wipe out your entire profit margin for the month. So the Treasury manager has to go out and buy forward contracts and complex derivatives just to protect the value of the money while it is stuck moving through the pipes.
So you are paying a high salary expert just to manage the fact that your vendor system is slow.
Precisely. That is pure deadweight loss. And then when that transaction inevitably gets flagged because of the Cuba Avenue issue we mentioned, you have to bring in the L4, the compliance officer. That's a $300 an hour resource, a lawyer, basically, spending their highly valuable time reviewing a false positive on a wire transfer for lumber.
So the true cost of that wire isn't $50. It's $50 plus $3,000 in FX fees, plus hours of labor from your most expensive employees.
That entire stack is the numerator. That is the massive weight dragging down global business velocity. And for a long time, we just accepted it. We got, well, that's just how global banking works. That's financial gravity.
But technology is supposed to fix this, right? I mean, we live in the age of artificial intelligence. We have Silicon Valley throwing billions of dollars at fintech startups every quarter. Why hasn't this been fixed by a sleek app? Why isn't there just a super AI bot that fixes SWIFT?
That is the trillion-dollar question. And it leads us directly to the most counterintuitive and frankly brilliant part of Boysen's dossier. It's what he calls the sustaining trap, or pathway B.
This is what he refers to as the better dashboard fallacy.
Correct. Pathway A is doing absolutely nothing. Pathway B is what almost everyone is doing right now, taking the old rusty 1970s pipes of banking SWIFT and the correspondent chain and just wrapping them in shiny new AI code.
Right, the marketing pitches. Look at our new app. It has dark mode. It has an AI copilot.
It predicts your cash flow with machine learning. But here is the fatal catch, and it is a devastating one structurally. Boysen calls it the induced compute deficit.
Okay, let's unpack that term, induced compute deficit. It sounds highly technical.
It sounds dense, but the physics of it are actually quite simple. Think about it. If you use AI to make your front end 10 times faster, if you use an autonomous AI agent to automatically generate invoices, read contracts, and fire off wire instructions the second a milestone is hit, you are now pouring 10 times more transactions into the top of the funnel.
Okay, so transaction volume goes up, efficiency on the front end. That sounds like a good thing.
But the back end, the actual pipe moving the money, is still SWIFT. It's still that daisy chain of humans checking for Cuba Avenue. So you haven't actually solved the settlement problem. You've just created a massive, catastrophic traffic jam.
You've essentially put a Ferrari engine inside a wooden horse cart.
It's worse than that. You put a Ferrari engine in a horse cart and then strapped a brick to the gas pedal. The cart doesn't go faster. It violently disintegrates.
Detail that disintegration for me. How exactly does the banking system break when AI ramps up the volume?
It comes back to the compliance bottleneck. The dossier does the brutal math on this. If your shiny new AI tool helps your business send 10 times more cross-border wires, you mathematically generate 10 times more AML flags. Those flags must be reviewed by human beings. By federal law, you cannot automate the final legal decision on a sanctions hit.
Because the liability is too high.
Exactly. So
Yes.
suddenly, your $300 an hour L4 compliance officer, who was already running at full capacity, is now buried under a mountain of AI-generated alerts.
A 10x multiplier on alerts.
You literally cannot hire, train, and deploy enough human compliance officers to clear that queue. So the payments just stop, the bank freezes accounts to protect itself. The system introduces artificial friction to slow you down because it physically cannot handle the computational speed of the front end.
So the whole system breaks. You literally cannot scale human compliance linearly to match machine speed volume.
You can't. And that's exactly why the dossier calls this the linear savings lie. Companies calculate their software ROI, assuming their transaction volume stays completely static. They think, oh, this AI tool will save us 10 minutes per wire. But they totally ignore the Jevons paradox.
Ah, Jevons, the 19th century economist. This is one of my favorite mental models.
William Stanley Jevons.
Yeah.
He observed that when steam engines became far more efficient with coal usage, we didn't end up using less coal. We actually used vastly more coal because steam power became cheaper and more profitable, so we put steam engines in absolutely everything.
Right. It's the exact same with LED light bulbs. If you make lighting 90% cheaper, people don't just pocket the savings and sit in the dark. They light up the entire city, they put screens on billboards, they leave the lights on all night.
Yeah, exactly. Induced demand. If you make cross-border payments cheaper and easier to execute on the front end, companies won't just save money on their current baseline volume. They will explode their volume. They will start paying their international contractors daily instead of monthly. They will pay their suppliers per unit manufactured instead of per monthly batch.
And if you try to run that exploded Jevons-induced volume through a legacy Swift correspondence system,
boom, the ID10T index hits 100, the system collapses under the sheer weight of its own compliance checks.
So pathway B, trying to make the old system slightly better with AI wrappers, is actually a trap. It leads straight to the bankruptcy of your operational budget because you have to hire an army of L4 compliance officers. Which brings us to the real aha moment of the dossier, the structural inversion. If we can't fix the old rails, we have to build entirely new ones.
We have to stop trying to genetically engineer horses to run faster and just build the combustion engine.
We need to dive deep into atomic settlement and the physics floor.
This is the core insight that shifts the entire paradigm. We have to fundamentally redefine what money is. In the digital age, money is simply data attached to a legally binding state of ownership. That's all it is.
And if money is just data, it should move like the internet.
It should move via TCP/IP protocols. It should move at the speed of light. The dossier starkly contrasts the commercial ceiling of traditional banking, which is $50 in 3 days, with the new physics floor.
And the stats Boysen provides here are just wild. The physics floor is cost, less than one single time, approximately 3 seconds.
And we need to be clear, that is the empirical reality of Layer 2 stablecoin transfers today. We aren't talking about theoretical future tech coming in 2030. This is live right now.
Okay, let's pause. You said layer 2. We hear that term thrown around a lot. Give us the deep dive primer for the non-technical listener. Why do we need a second layer? What was inherently wrong with the first one?
Great question. Think of Layer 1, like the main Ethereum network, as the Supreme Court of computing. It's incredibly secure, it's highly decentralized, but because every node in the world has to verify everything, it is very slow and very expensive to use. You don't take a local parking ticket to the Supreme Court.
Right, you'd go completely bankrupt just paying the lawyer fees for a $50 fine.
Exactly. Layer 2, which are networks like Base or Arbitramax like the local traffic court, it handles thousands and thousands of small transactions instantly and incredibly cheaply. It batches them all up mathematically and sends a single cryptographic summary to the Supreme Court layer once in a while for the permanent, immutable record.
So layer 2 gives us the processing speed of Visa, but retains the underlying security of the blockchain.
That's a physics floor. That architectural shift is how we get the marginal cost of a transfer down to a penny. And it is exactly what enables atomic settlement.
I really want to drill down on that word, atomic. Because in the physical world, nothing is truly simultaneous. If I hand you a $20 bill, there is a split second where we are both holding it.
Right. But in computer science, an atomic transaction is strictly binary. It either happens completely, 100%, or it doesn't happen at all. There is zero middle state.
So the money literally can't get lost in the mail.
Impossible by the laws of math.
Yeah.
Think of SWIFT like mailing a physical letter. You drop it in the blue box, that's the send, and 3 days later it arrives, that's the settlement. If the mail truck crashes on the highway, the letter is gone. The system has failed in transit.
Right. The instruction and the value are separated by time and space.
Exactly. Atomic settlement is completely different. It's like a vending machine. You don't put your money in the slot, wait 3 business days, and just hope a Snickers bar falls out next week. The mechanical act of the coil turning is the exchange. If the coil jams and the Snickers doesn't fall, you don't lose your money. The machine just doesn't deduct from your balance.
So in this structural inversion we were talking about, the payment instruction, the message, and the actual value transfer are the exact same data packet.
Precisely. This is known in finance as delivery versus payment, or DVP, and doing it atomically removes counterparty risk. That's the risk that I pay you, but you go bankrupt or disappear before delivering goods. In an atomic blockchain world, that specific risk is mathematically reduced to zero.
That honestly blows my mind every time I think about it. There's no risk because there is literally no time for risk to happen. The duration of the transaction is effectively zero.
Precisely. You completely eliminate the need to trust Bank B or Bank C because they don't even exist in this transaction architecture. It is strictly peer-to-peer, wallet-to-wallet, validated by cryptography, not by a compliance officer in London.
So if this is so vastly superior, if it's cheaper, faster, and objectively safer, why isn't every corporate treasurer doing this today? Why are we still pushing paper through SWIFT? What is the psychological holdup?
Well, this is where we have to climb what Boysen calls the 3-state epistemic hierarchy.
Whew, fancy academic words. Break that down for us.
Boysen categorizes our knowledge and adoption of new paradigms into 3 states. Yep. State 1 is hunches. And unfortunately, this is where a huge majority of people, and definitely most Fortune 500 CFOs, are completely stuck right now.
What does a State 1 hunch look like in the boardroom?
It sounds like crypto is just for criminals. Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. The volatility is too crazy to use for payroll. FTX collapsed, so the underlying technology must be rotten.
They are reacting to the headlines, the fear, not the mechanics.
Exactly. Then you move up to State 2. Beliefs. This is a bit more nuanced. A treasurer might say SWIFT is painfully slow, but I believe stablecoins are still too risky from a regulatory standpoint. Or I believe blockchain has long-term potential, but the UX just isn't there yet. It's getting warmer, but it's still fundamentally based on fear and incomplete information. We desperately need the market to get to State 3. Empirical truths.
The cold, hard, verifiable data.
The empirical truth is simple. SWIFT structurally separates information from funds. Blockchain structurally unifies them. SWIFT relies on highly fallible human beings checking spreadsheets. Blockchain relies on immutable math. When you look strictly at the physics, 1 cent versus $50, 3 seconds versus 5 days, the debate is over. The only remaining question is implementation.
And that implementation is Pathway C, the actual structural inversion. And this brings us right back to that glorious, highly visual term, the Mullet strategy.
I love this concept because it directly solves the biggest barrier to enterprise adoption, the user experience.
Right, because let's be brutally honest, asking the CFO of a publicly traded company to download a MetaMask wallet extension and write down a 24-word seed phrase on a piece of paper, that is literally never going to happen.
Never. Their corporate governance strictly forbids it. A CFO cannot be their own bank in that cypherpunk sense. If the CFO gets hit by a bus and loses the physical key, does the company just lose its entire global payroll? No way.
So the solution is fintech in the front, crypto in the back.
Exactly. The user, whether that's the CFO, the Treasury manager, or the AP clerk, logs into a SaaS dashboard that looks exactly like the boring standard banking portals they use today. It has role-based users, approval workflows, PDF reports. They click a button that says pay vendor in Vietnam. They see dollars leaving their account balance.
They never see a hexadecimal wallet address. They never have to calculate gas fees in Gwei.
They are completely shielded from the plumbing, abstracted away. But on the back end, the party in the back, the software architecture, takes those digital dollars, instantly converts them to USDC stablecoins, zips them across a layer 2 network like Base for a single penny, and then automatically off-ramps them into the vendor's local currency on the other side.
It's invisible infrastructure.
It's what we call adopting the rail versus the religion. We are completely ditching the crypto religion, the libertarian ideology, the pure decentralization maxims, and just keeping the rail, the highly efficient database technology.
But hold on, let me put my skeptic hat on for a second. I'm a CFO. I hear crypto in the back and I don't see a party. I see a massive audit nightmare. I see Celsius and FTX. I see systemic risk. You can't just hide the crypto behind a slick dashboard. Eventually, Ernst & Young or PricewaterhouseCoopers are going to look under the hood.
That is a totally valid fear, and it's exactly what Pathway C addresses.
Yeah.
You can't hide the asset, but you can technologically abstract the custody.
But who actually owns the tokens? If I lose my login, my private key, is my company's capital gone forever? Because I can't just call up customer service and fire a decentralized protocol.
And that's exactly why self-custody, the idea of engraving a seed phrase on a piece of metal, is dead on arrival for corporations. The Mullet strategy relies on something called MPC, or multi-party computation.
Which is what, exactly? Like a shared master password.
Think of it like a nuclear launch sequence. In the movies, the president has a key, and the general in the silo has a key, and they have to turn them at the exact same time to launch.
Right. Two keys, physically separated.
MPC is exactly like that, but built into the cryptography. The private key that controls the actual stablecoins is mathematically shattered into 3 separate shards. One shard lives securely on your laptop's hardware enclave. One shard is held by a fully regulated, audited trust bank in New York. And the third shard is in offline cold storage as an absolute backup.
So no single person or entity holds the full key at any time.
Correct. You need 2 out of the 3 shards to mathematically sign and execute a transaction. So even if a hacker breaches your laptop and steals your shard, they can't move a single dime. They only have one piece of the puzzle. They would need the bank's shard too. And the regulated bank won't sign their shard unless the request passes all their internal risk checks.
That brilliantly satisfies the auditors. It completely removes the single point of failure.
Exactly. It creates an institutional-grade enterprise safety net completely around the crypto rail.
Okay, so we've solved the scary wallet and custody problem. But what about the scary regulation problem? The L4 compliance officer is still sweating in their cubicle. How do we actually do KYC Know Your Customer on a decentralized blockchain? If I send money to an anonymous wallet address that starts with 0x734, how do I legally prove to the U.S. government that I'm not funding a sanctioned entity?
This brings us to the second massive pillar of the structural inversion, zero-knowledge KYC, or what Boysen playfully calls PLAD for on-chain.
Plaid is that API thing that connects my banking app to Venmo, right?
Right. So imagine this workflow. In the old world, every single time you want to pay a new international vendor, you have to email them a PDF form. They email you backscans of their passports and utility bills, and your compliance team manually checks them against databases. It's incredibly slow and redundant. In the new world, the vendor verifies their identity just once with a highly trusted third-party oracle.
Like a digital global passport office.
Yes. That office checks their physical ID, does the biometrics, and then issues a cryptographic proof to the vendor's digital wallet. This is a zero-knowledge proof.
Zero knowledge meaning I can cryptographically know you are exactly who you say you are, but I don't actually need to see your passport or store your personal data.
Exactly. The perfect analogy is a bouncer at a nightclub. The bouncer only needs to know that you are strictly over 21. He doesn't need to know your home address, your middle name, or your zodiac sign. He just needs a mathematical yes or no validation to let you in.
Got it. The proof isolates the specific claim from the underlying data.
Exactly. This proof now lives natively in the vendor's wallet. So when your dashboard sends the stablecoin, the smart contract, the actual code routing the money, checks the proof automatically in milliseconds. It queries the blockchain. Is this receiving wallet sanctioned? Is this wallet actively verified by a trusted entity?
And if the answer is no, what happens?
The transaction instantly blocks itself at the protocol level.
It blocks itself.
The money literally refuses to move. The physics of the rail prevent the non-compliant transfer. And this completely solves the Jevons paradox scalability bottleneck we talked about earlier. You don't need a human L4 compliance officer to manually review 10,000 microtransactions a day because the cryptography enforces the compliance rules before the money can even leave.
That is just huge. That's how you actually escape the linear savings lie. You can scale your transaction volume to infinity because the marginal cost of compliance drops to zero. It's fully automated.
It achieves total regulatory parity with Tradfi, but with infinite frictionless scale.
Okay, so we've made the payments incredibly cheap. We've made them light speed fast. We've made them legally compliant. But the manifesto mentions another killer feature of this architecture, the RWA engine, real-world assets. This directly addresses what Boysen calls the dead capital problem.
This is where the CFO's eyes really light up during the pitch. Because in TradFi traditional finance, if you have millions of dollars sitting in a checking account just waiting to clear a wire, or money sitting in a correspondent bank transit for 5 days,
Mhm.
what exact interest rate are you earning on that capital?
Probably zero. I mean, maybe 0.1% if you negotiated a great sweep account, but functionally zero.
It's dead capital. It's doing absolutely nothing for your balance sheet. But in the crypto-native world, we now have tokenized treasuries, things like BlackRock's BUIDL fund. You can hold your corporate cash in a highly liquid digital token that directly represents short-term U.S. Treasury bills,
Which are currently paying, what, around 5% yield right now?
around 5%. But here is the real magic trick. In the old legacy world, if you wanted to spend those treasuries to pay a vendor, you have to sell the bonds, wait 2 days for the cash to settle, move the cash to your checking account, and then wire it. It takes a full week. In this structural inversion, the token itself is the liquidity,
Wait, so my money is earning 5% yield?
right up until the exact microsecond you click pay. The smart contract instantly liquidates the fractional treasury token, converts it to USDC, and sends the stablecoin across the globe in the exact same atomic transaction.
So the corporate treasury suddenly becomes a massive profit center, not a cost center.
You are systematically monetizing the float. Instead of the correspondent banks secretly keeping that transit interest for themselves, you keep it. On a $33 trillion global market, that is a staggering historic amount of value shifting directly from the banks back to the actual operating businesses.
This is incredibly transformative, but I want to go back to the Jevons math engine. We talked about how transaction volume explodes when the marginal cost drops to near zero. The dossier estimates an elasticity coefficient of 2.5 for this market.
Which is classified as hyperelastic in economics. It predicts roughly an 8,400% explosion in transaction volume once these rails are adopted.
8,400%. That sounds completely terrifying if you are managing the IT servers. Or exciting, but mostly terrifying if you're a legacy bank. What does that actually look like in practice? Give me some tangible scenarios of what businesses will do with that volume.
It looks like entirely new business models that were previously impossible due to friction. Let's take 3 distinct examples from the dossier. First, streaming payroll.
Okay, lay it out.
Right now, if you have a software contractor in the Philippines, you probably pay them once a month. Why? Because the international wire costs $50. You mathematically can't pay them daily. The wire fees would eat 20% of their salary.
Right. It's operationally inefficient to pay small amounts across borders.
But if the transaction fee is strictly 1 cent, you can easily pay them every Friday. You can pay them every single day at 5 p.m. You can literally pay them by the hour. You can stream money to their digital wallet continuously as they commit code to GitHub.
That changes the macroeconomic lives of workers in developing nations massively. They don't have to wait 30 days to buy groceries or pay rent.
Exactly. Second scenario, micro-settlements in physical supply chains. Imagine a massive automotive factory. Right now, they ship complex goods and get paid on net 60 or net 90 terms. It's a complete cash flow desert for the suppliers.
And those suppliers have to take out expensive short-term loans just to survive that 60-day wait.
Exactly. Factoring loans. In the new atomic world, you put an IoT API sensor on the shipping container. The moment that container physically passes the geofence at the destination port beep, the smart contract triggers and the payment is instantly sent. Per pallet. Per individual box.
Just-in-time payments to match just-in-time manufacturing.
Exactly. It completely eliminates the working capital gap. Small businesses constantly die because they run out of cash while waiting for massive invoices to clear. If you get paid instantly upon delivery, you don't need to borrow expensive bridge money. The sheer velocity of money accelerates the entire economy.
And the third scenario, Boysen outlines.
Treasury sweeps. Pure programmatic liquidity. Instead of a human treasury manager looking at a dashboard and deciding how much cash to move where, a sophisticated AI algorithm sweeps excess cash into high-yield tokenized assets 10 times a day. You algorithmically maximize every single penny of interest.
It really feels like we are moving from a manual, analog, mechanical world to a highly programmable digital physics.
We are. We are fundamentally moving from managing float, which is just trying to predict where your money is trapped, to programmatic liquidity.
So with all this incredible upside, cheaper, faster, perfectly compliant, and profitable for the user, why aren't the big banks building this? Why isn't JP Morgan rolling out the Mullet strategy API tomorrow morning?
It's the classic innovator's dilemma, pure disruption theory playing out in real time.
They're making too much easy money on the old way.
Look at the numerator again, that 3% hidden FX markup. That represents billions and billions of dollars in free, riskless revenue for the correspondent banks. If they build free atomic settlement, they instantly destroy their own revenue stream. They cannibalize their most profitable division.
They literally can't build it because it kills their golden goose. The shareholders would revolt.
Exactly. Swift is their protective moat. If they replace Swift with an open-source protocol that costs a penny, their stock price collapses the next quarter. They are structurally and financially incapable of leading this specific revolution. It absolutely has to come from the outside.
So how does this actually enter the market? Who adopts this first? The dossier spends a lot of time on the go-to-market wedge. You don't just walk into a Fortune 500 company and say, hey, replace your entire banking infrastructure with this crypto mullet.
No, that's way too risky for a corporate buyer. You have to use a Trojan horse strategy. And the absolute perfect Trojan horse, according to Boysen, is international contractor payroll.
Why? That specific slice of the pie.
Because it hits the trifecta. It is high pain, high volume, and incredibly low risk. Paying a distributed global workforce of contractors is an absolute nightmare. It's expensive, it's slow, and the contractors constantly complain about currency fluctuations and missing wires. But crucially, contractor payroll is not the company's core treasury. It's an isolated side bucket.
So a startup goes to the CFO and says, I can save you 6% on your global contractor payroll, and your devs get paid instantly.
And the CFO says, well, the pain is high enough. Okay, try it on this small batch of 50 engineers in Eastern Europe. And when it works flawlessly, when they see the massive savings hit the P&L, then you logically expand to the primary supply chain. Then you expand to intercompany treasury transfers. You land with the payroll wedge and you seamlessly expand.
The dossier calls this proving the top box gap.
Right. This is a crucial validation metric in product strategy. It simply compares importance versus satisfaction in survey data. Corporate CFOs routinely rate neutralizing payment liability as high importance, but their measured satisfaction with current SWIFT providers is incredibly low. The delta, the gap, is 78%.
That is a massive gaping hole in the market. That is a screaming demand for a fundamentally new product.
Usually in enterprise software, a gap of 30 or 40% is considered a huge opportunity for disruption. 78% is a 5-alarm emergency. It means the market is totally desperate for a lifeline.
I really love the final section on the execution toolkit because it stops being macro-theoretical and gets highly practical for builders. It explicitly mentions building a concierge MVP.
This is a brilliant tactic for any fintech entrepreneurs listening. Don't build the complex smart contracts or the front-end code yet. Prove the economic math manually first.
How does a concierge MVP actually work in this context?
You find a frustrated CFO. You take just one problematic international invoice. You look them in the eye and say, I will settle this invoice for you in 24 hours for a flat 1% fee. Then you literally do it manually behind the scenes. You take their wire, you manually buy the USDC on Coinbase, you manually send it across the network, and you manually off-ramp it to their vendor using a local broker. You, the founder, act as the API.
You are the human router, the mechanical Turk.
Yes. And if the CFO is thrilled with the speed and cost, you've proven the value proposition. Only then do you raise capital and build the automation. The dossier also suggests using what he calls a heat map spreadsheet.
Oh, right, the spreadsheet columns that explicitly prove the legacy system fails at scale.
It's a lethal sales tool. You show the CFO a financial model with a column for pathway B scaling with their current AI-wrapped bank. You ramp up the volume, and suddenly the cell turns violently red and says, system failure, because the L4 compliance cost exceeds the gross margin. Then you show pathway C, the stablecoin inversion, and the cell stays bright green no matter how high the volume goes. You literally beat their objections with their own math.
It's mathematically undeniable.
It completely shifts the sales conversation from, hey, do we like crypto, to, wait, can we mathematically afford not to do this before our competitors do?
So let's try to wrap all this up. We've covered the deep history of correspondent banking, the deadly trap of AI wrappers, the physics of atomic settlement, and the exact GTM strategy to roll it out. What is the ultimate legacy of this structural shift? What does the future actually look like for a corporate CFO?
The future CFO is no longer just a hedger of risk. They aren't waking up in a cold sweat worrying about the euro crashing against the dollar over a long bank holiday weekend.
Because there is no weekend risk. Settlement is instant.
Right. The CFO transforms into an architect of capital velocity. They are managing programmatic algorithms, not armies of AP clerks. The modern multinational company effectively becomes a set of programmable APIs, routing value instantly across the globe.
That is just a profoundly powerful image, the company as pure code.
And the most important part of that image, the end user will never even know. Just like you don't know how the TCP/IP handshake works when you send that WhatsApp message to Manila.
The mullet strategy truly wins when you completely forget the mullet is even there.
Exactly. The absolute best technology is the one you don't even realize you're using. We are rapidly moving toward a world where a cross-border payment isn't a special, terrifying category of finance. It's just a payment.
Fast, radically cheap, and completely invisible.
That is the true promise of the structural inversion.
So here is my final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. The dossier talks extensively about the ID10T index. I want you to critically look at your own business, or honestly, even your own personal financial workflows. Where are you relying on legacy systems that would immediately break if you tried to run 10 times more volume through them tomorrow? Are you currently wrapping a horse cart in AI?
That's the critical question. You have to check your numerator. Actually calculate the hidden spread fees, the wasted transit time, the manual labor. If that number is high, you are structurally vulnerable. You are standing right on the tracks, and the stablecoin train is coming fast.
And it's moving at the speed of light.
Indeed it is.
This has been our Practical Jobs to be Done deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you then.